would you allow me? I'm asking you for your permission to be naughty for a little bit.
Hey,
I'm not going to cuss.
no, of course not. I trust that you would never.
Danny Jordan is a bold-faced liar. That comes from me. First of all, the NEC never discussed my retirement, at least not at the time when I left. On the 28th of March 2018, there was a discussion in an NEC meeting in Sandton at the Hilton Hotel where my contract was discussed, and I refused, and I will send you that recording because I made that recording, because I know SAFA and how they work, because they will set you up for stuff and then deny it afterwards. I have a recording of that discussion. And so that discussion, there was a discussion about renewal. And I said, no, until I have my issues dealt with, specifically as it relates to Danny Jordan's daily interference in my work, I am not going to agree to a renewal.
And I want to go into that a little bit. But what you've just heard now, of course, is a shorter version of a longer conversation had with journalist and Danny Jordan, who was explaining the tenures over the years of different CEOs that have come and gone. But obviously, that's the part which serves for the conversation that we're having. When you say interference, and this conversation is important because we've got a man that has left, who has left the office of the CEO of South African Football Association. When you look at the behavior at the press conference, when you look at the fact that, he's had nothing to say after that, he's just left that position, resigned, and we don't know what the reason is. It's then important to look back and say, is there something more that we don't know? You're saying there was constant interference with your job. What does that mean? I mean, he is your boss at the end of the day. Is he not? Is he not allowed to, insistently ask, what's going on? Talk to me. Hey, how do we do this better? What is interference according to you?
Andile, the first book that I wrote last year, I've done 4 books. 2 of those are educational books. It's purely about how to run a football association because nobody understands the exact scope of what a football association is supposed to do. And then the 4th one is about how the election of last year was stolen. And I go into detail that, as I said, I don't speak and I don't write without having evidence. And I will show you at some point the evidence that I have for how that election was fixed and who fixed it and when they fixed it. It didn't happen on the day of the election. It happened well before. And that I've written in the 4th book. Now, in terms of the second part of that statement, Russell was not the COO of SAFA when he became the acting CEO. So he doesn't even know what's happening in his own organization. But the point here is that I had been complaining for years about his interference.
What's interference,
I
Dennis?
confronted, making decisions behind my back, meeting with the staff behind my back. Let's take, for instance, the television contract that we had with CIA. In that contract, I find out one day that he's gone to meet with the people at CIA, made an agreement with them, didn't even have the decency to come and tell me about it, but he agrees to write off 450 million rand of potential income for SAFA over the next 3 years. Now, when I got an email from them to say, listen, can you please sign this thing because Danny Jordan had agreed to this, I said, hell no, I'm not going to do that. Because first of all, an amount like that, you don't just write it off. You take it and have a discussion.
So CIA owed the Federation that money?
Well, remember we had a contract with the SABC, and that contract, after 3 years, came to an end from 2015 to 2018, and then there was supposed to be a renewal. But it was a sub-licensing agreement because CIA held the agreement, the contract for 6 years. And I think it was after a year or two when we signed with the SABC a special deal, but it was a kind of a sub-licensing deal.
From the majority right holders.
Exactly.
So that contract was worth 450.
Exactly.
Okay.
So CIA still remained the rights holder.
Yeah.
And those rights revert back to CIA at the end of the SABC contract. Now, when that contract or the SABC came to an end in 2018, he went and then had a meeting separately with them, decided there unilaterally, never presented it to the NEC. And I can tell you, up until at least July of last year, because I've just not gotten involved in SAFA's issues, But up until July of last year, that write-off was never reported to the NEC. And so he questioned,
Why do you think he'd write so much money off? When a business that is not financial, I mean, we saw the financials that have come out that were presented to us, a business that's not financially strong.
That's why I refuse to sign that so-called agreement. Now, what it is, I see subsequently he claimed that, the NEC had approved this and whatnot. I have people from the NEC who served on that NEC who had told me that up until the moment when they left, that matter had not been presented to the NEC. So which NEC is he working with is the one question. The other part of it is that the NEC had approved my my departure. It was never presented to the NEC, because even 6 months after I left SAFA, I was still in discussions with Gay Mokwena and another vice president, Kolile and Kompela. But I was negotiating with 3 vice presidents. But my condition for leaving, and this is the first time that you hear it, my condition for leaving is that I will not renew my contract until Danny JORDAAN gives a written agreement or a written signs an agreement that he will not interfere in my day-to-day responsibilities. Because every day when I walk into that office, I find one or the other staff member that is called in and giving instructions to, whether it is the chief financial officer that he gives instructions to. One day I went into his office and confronted him and told him, if I find Russell Paul in your office once more, I'm going to fire him. He denied that he was meeting with Russell behind my back. Now, these are things that you don't hear when you are, because we don't talk our business outside. Yeah. We fight our fights internally.
How much truth do you think there is to this with what you're saying now? One of the reports, it is reported that the CEO that just left now, right, Tebogo Motlanthe, his office had cameras in it.
Well, I wouldn't be surprised. We're talking about a very paranoid...
And he asked, can I have the footage to which these cameras that have been hooked into my office? And he was told that, no, he couldn't have them. That is what is being reported. That is what has been rumored.
I wouldn't be surprised. But, as I said, I really have not been in touch with anybody at SAFA. And I'm...
But that's something within the constraint of that building, you think?
Let me give you an instance for the reason why I'm saying I wouldn't be surprised. He came to me one day and said to me, listen, we need to have this building swept because I see listening devices here all over the building. So I asked him, where did you see this? No, go there into the boardroom. You'll see there in the light fixtures there are listening devices in. I go there to the boardroom. I look at the light fixtures. And what I find out there is that we've been changing from the old light bulbs to the new energy saver light bulbs. And so because the rooms are now brighter, we left some of those empty, We didn't fill up all of those bulbs as part of the energy saving exercise that we were doing. But he was paranoid enough to think that those are listening devices. This is the screw-in part of the bulb, where you screw the bulb in, that holder. So the level of paranoia there is the reason why I'm saying I am not surprised. So, but I can't vouch for what is being reported now. But again, as I said, I wouldn't be surprised because I've had to deal with that myself.
It's 18:39, about to go 18:40 on the Mighty Metro FM. Let's take a break. When we come back on the other side, there's still a lot to discuss. I've got a document in front of me that'll take us at least 2 weeks to get through, with emails that are said to be involved and available for proof of everything that I'm reading that's in front of me that Mr. Mumble has kept, some even telephonic and maybe recordings that have been kept that are available, that will be made available at a later stage to back up everything that Mr. Dennis Mumble is saying, speaking to former CEO of the South African Football Association. One of the things mentioned in what I've got in front of me now, a response to SAFA's reply to the Gay Mokwena and Dennis Mumble report, which is called a fact check by Dennis Mumble, mentions something that I'm hoping we're going to be able to get into because, very embarrassed and it didn't make for great viewing when all over the world people watched on Netflix a documentary called Uncovered, which was about the 2010 World Cup in South Africa and some of the shenanigans that went on here with names, of course, that had been mentioned. But also, there's another part of this, and I'm hoping that we're going to be able to at least get through that, which is enabled relationship with the NSL. But firstly, Dennis Mumble, you've got a story about your first year when you arrived. I can imagine, you guys at some point had a great relationship, and that first year should have been that, the romantic years, the courting years, the honeymoon, so to speak.
Well, when I first came home, I was in exile for 18 years. And I came home in 1996, and then, when things didn't go in the way that was planned, I then planned to go back to New York because the university was asking me to come back. They didn't find a replacement for me. So 6-7 months later, I then ran into him at the airport, and he said to me, "Hey, there's this Walls to Bridges conference that we want to do. Can you please come and help me?" And that's how I actually accidentally got into football. I was literally on my way back to New York to go and resume my work. And so at the end of the day, it's not so much in that document the first day when I came to SAFA, because at that point he was talking, some really good stuff. I was helping him do some of the strategic work. I came in as the general manager of SAFA. I spent my first 5 years there being the general manager, and then I was asked to go, or I left because of a disagreement that I had with JORDAAN. Again, not taking responsibility for things that he does. He does all of these things. He sets people up, and then he throws you under the bus when push comes to shove, and runs away from the responsibility. So that's what happened to me in 2001.
You're gonna have to tell me, Dennis. What does that mean? What did you do? What did he do? How did you throw you under the bus?
Well, the crisis in South African football in early 1997 was all around the allegation that Stix Morewa had compromised himself by taking a loan from a marketing company and allowed all of SAFA's marketing properties to be controlled, and that the marketing company was benefiting mostly from SAFA's properties. And the decision was that SAFA should not outsource its properties anymore, but we should do that stuff in-house. Now he then, 5 years later, come 2001, SAFA is in a spot of trouble. He goes to another company and he gets a loan from them. But at the same time, he must now go to Miami with his family. He must, go on his holiday and then ask me and former President Molefi Oliphant to go and sign an agreement that he negotiated. And in that agreement is a clause that actually gave over SAFA's properties once again to a marketing company. Now, we were desperate for the money, and then he set both Molefi Oliphant and myself up to conclude that agreement after he had done it. In fact, to sign the agreement, but after he had concluded
negotiated it. And
I have the documents. I looked at the file the other day. I still have those documents. But what happened then, he runs to Oliphant and says to Oliphant, "No, you must fire Mumble, you must fire Mumble. He's the one that did it." And Oliphant said to him, "But you were the one who came to us to ask us to do this." And I said, then I made up my mind then, at the end of 2001, I'm not going to deal with such an unprincipled person. I hate to talk about
myself. You know what's funny, Mr. Mumble? I had Molefi Oliphant on the show last week, and he spoke so glowingly and so lovingly and so precariously beautifully I can't find the words for it, prepossessingly, of the president, and the relationship they had. And I mean, he even went on to say, "Hey, I was actually on a call with him last night, Andile, and he's doing well, and we had great conversations." I wonder, when you guys had similar experiences with the same man, why the outlook and the outpouring of what's since then happened so different?
After I left SAFA in 2001, Molefi Oliphant came to me to ask me to go and run FNB Stadium, prepare it for the World Cup, which I went and did for the next 4 years. And then after that, I went to the World Cup again on another SAFA project. SAFA owned the LOC. And then after that, when I was done at the World Cup, again, I left the LOC because of Danny JORDAAN's shenanigans. And then I came back to SAFA, and ran into problems where I wasn't paid for the first 2 years or first 18 months that I worked at SAFA. But I went in there because I didn't go there to go and make money. I went there to make a difference. And every opportunity that I got or that I thought I had, I ran into these stumbling blocks. And it's basically JORDAAN undermining me throughout. the first year that I'm talking about in that document is the first year of my tenure as the CEO. In that first year, the man tried to push me out of the position of CEO. I walk into his office one day. He sits with the lawyer in his office. He gives me a document. He says to me, I must sign the document. I have a copy of the document. He says that I must sign this document because he's deploying me to Fun Valley, the so-called National Technical Center. And I refused. I said to him straight to his face, what do you think you are doing? Because imagine in your mind now, I come from the position of a CEO. I go and oversee the development of the National Technical Center. What do you think the new CEO is going to think about me being there? And secondly, I'm only just over a year in the job, not had an opportunity to deliver on what I had agreed needs to be delivered. Because remember, in 2013, SAFA was in chaos, and my job was to stabilize SAFA during that first year, which I did. In the second year, we then set out implementing the technical master plan. But in that same year that he tried to get rid of me as the CEO, he did not want to hear anything about the technical master plan. Now remember, the technical master plan is a product of us bringing together 200 of South Africa's best coaches. And on the day that it was, or the day following his election, when we met there in Sandton, he said, listen, I don't want this thing of the technical master plan. Use another term. Use Vision 2022. First of all, he was not part of a single session of that technical master plan development.
That became Vision 2022.
No, it didn't become Vision 2022 necessarily. It was still the technical master plan. But Vision 2022 was a broader program of eight areas. The technical master plan was one of them.
Okay.
Financial stability was another one. Developing a world-class administration was another one. Gender equality was another one.
Women's football,
and all of those. That is what we call Vision 2022. Again, that's my work. But at the end of the day, because it was Kirsten Nematandani, or the technical master plan was developed under Kirsten Nematandani, he wanted nothing to do. I'm talking about the vanity of a person.
Because he was obviously at the helm at the time.
Yeah.
Now, in mentioning Molefe Oliphant, our conversation here with him was after the PSL had refused to attend the conference that was hosted by SAFA, of course, which I think was 2 weeks ago now?
Yes.
About 3 weeks ago. I see here, as part of this conversation, of this document, relationship with the NSL is a heading. And under that, you write, the circular confirmed Mumble's allegation that the SAFA president undermines the NSL in his dealings with it.
Yeah.
What is the relation between the two?
I'm going to talk because it's out there in the public. I spoke about it to the media 3 years ago, but I'm going to remind everybody about this. I don't blame the NSL for responding in the way that they've done. They've done their darndest. They've done their best to maintain that reputable brand that they've developed over many years now. And what you don't want is to have a situation where you get into an argument with your parent body and then your sponsors start asking questions from you, but why, are we getting involved in these controversies now? So I understand the PSL's reluctance to get involved in anything that will tarnish their brand, because they have a right to protect their brand. And what you have is a situation where, on a very personal level, because I was at the receiving end of this, anything that goes wrong in this world, and in particular in South African football, is Ivan Khoza's fault in Danny Jordaan's eyes. Ivan, he would walk down the street and he would stumble over a rock and he would blame Ivan Khoza for it. But that's how deep the paranoia is. And so, at some point you just listen to it and you move on. But there is this strained relationship, and has been there for many years between the two of them.
What's the source of it?
I was trying for a long time to put my finger on what it is that caused this. At some point many years ago, I think it was about 10, 15 years ago, I had a conversation with Ivan Koza about that as well. He also doesn't understand, but what I know is that there is this thing where any opportunity he gets, he will paint Ivan Koza as black as you can get. And yet, I've not heard Ivan Koza, even in the corner somewhere, saying anything negative about Danny Jordaan. And so I really don't know what...
what does $10 million have to do with it, if anything?
Well, that's a matter, I believe it's part of a criminal investigation right now. Somebody has lodged a complaint with the National, or with the Hawks, to investigate this matter. I don't know what's happening with that, but what I know is that it's the subject of a criminal investigation still. So I'm not really at liberty to talk about that.
Did you watch the documentary? Uncovered on Netflix?
Yeah, I watched that, yeah. A couple of things that I don't agree with in there, but yeah, generally the issue of the broader corruption that they dealt with in football, generally speaking, which caused FIFA to make a U-turn, and FIFA really resurrected its reputation, from...
but let's zero it down to us. Our involvement in that.
Yeah.
Because one could say that was the era in which you were still there?
Yeah, I was still working.
That was that era. So how much of that Blattsplatter misses you? How much of that were you perhaps involved in? How much of those documents were you signing or told to sign?
Yeah, well, those things happened in the year 2008, 2007 and 2008. Remember, I left the LOC in 2008, and I was not involved at that level where these discussions took place. So what I learned subsequently is what I came across during the FIFA investigation in 2016, when I laid eyes on many of the documents at the time, because during the time I was working at the LOC, I was the chief competitions officer there, and that was not my brief, it was not part of my brief. But I subsequently learned a lot of things based on the documents and the investigation that FIFA conducted in 2016 that revealed some things, for me for the first time. But, at the time, the Minister of Sports said that this is a matter for government to deal with, and prohibited anybody from dealing with the matter. That's was Minister Mbalula.
You and I both know that what Minister Mbalula said, and I remember that briefing pretty well, has come to zero.
Yeah.
Come to zero. And if one could tell me that another sports minister has picked it up since then, I'd love to see it, because I've never seen or heard of it since that moment. And whenever we speak, Mr. Mumble, it almost always unveils that we need to speak more. And we certainly do. But before we do let it go, because there's about 5 minutes left, a new CEO has been appointed. The old CEO has left. Somebody who has been part of that. When you look at the history, when you look at the dominant figure and the one person that is a part of the story throughout, how do you think Lydia then navigates this?
Well, I first of all, I must congratulate her. She needs all of our support, and I seriously mean that she needs all of our support, because I come from the standpoint that we need to protect her. She's smart, she's driven, she's a former Banyana captain, and to see someone sent to that position in the way that she has done, I mean, we really need to go all out to support her. But we must protect her from the hyenas in the governance structure of that organization. And that's what I fear for her now. But I wish her all of the best, all of the luck.
She's a listener of the show. I know she does every single day. What's your advice directly from a personal, I've been there point? What would you say to her?
Well, I think that she must just be who she is, because I know her. I mean, she really had gone out of her way to get herself educated over the years, and she deserves. I mean, if anybody deserves that position, it's her. So I wish her, the best of luck, but she must get to learn and understand how to navigate the politics. The structure of SAFA is not optimal. And so therefore, any CEO who goes into that position, is going to be set up for failure for as long as the politics of that structure is what it is right now, and it's very toxic. So she must just be cautious about and just watch her back, because she can do the job. That much I can tell you. She's excelled at everything that she's done, and so
there's going to be a quarter of society that's sitting there listening to this, and they're going to say, "Yeah, here's a man let go, still holding on to what could have been, and the fact that he lost a job, not letting go of this anger." What do you make of that?
I didn't lose a job.
I mean, obviously, this is a person that's hearing the other side who's going to say, yeah, of course, Danny's told us that this man's job was not renewed, and this is anger.
Yeah, I don't want to go back to SAFA. I'm the one who took the decision to go because I knew it was time for me to go and do something else. Despite the fact that they asked me, I gave them the courtesy of listening to them for a while. I don't want to go back to SAFA. So I have no bitterness about not being there. I'm busy working and in my LFA and very quietly, and that's all that I do. What I am doing now is to share my experiences with those who are coming after us, and that's the reason why I wrote these books, is to educate them. Yeah, some of it is critical. At least two of the books are really critical of what is happening in the governance and the administration of SAFA. But the other two books are educational, and I will continue to write because I have a lot to share.
It sounds like there's maybe a resentment of sorts and an abhorrence, a loathing for the president. Is this one of those, on Dennison, you can correct me at any point here, where you say, until he leaves that position he does not deserve, according to your thinking, I am never going to rest?
I don't want to sound bitter, but I think I didn't come to waste my time in football. I came to do something positive. And he's just been an obstacle all along the way. So I still hold the belief that he is not fit to be the SAFA president. And I've given my reasons, and many reasons for that. And I still hold to that position.
When are you coming out with how the SAFA elections were stolen? Because when you do, please come here. We'd love to have you, and would love to have a listen to that conversation.
No, I will come and talk to you about that because, as I said, I've completed all 4 of the books now. The one is on the market. The other 3 I am working now on the launch.
When you are ready, please do.
Yeah, you let me know when you have the time. I will come and talk to you.
Oh no, we're going to have the time. And of course, to the South African Football Association, its president, its CEO, and anybody within the building. If you do at any point want to come and have a conversation about any and everything, including anything that you might have heard here this evening, any day, absolutely any day, we will move everything if we need to in order to give you your space. We've always sent that out there, and we continue to. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Really appreciate it. Dennis Mumble, former CEO of the South African Football Association. Go get the books.